kids back in Ohio, and we may have seen a ghost that night. I don't really know. You have to decide, I think. But Bill and I were really excited that Halloween because it was the first year we were allowed to go out trick-or-treating by ourselves. No parents. And we both dressed up as ghosts. We got sheets and cut out eye holes, and we got big shopping bags to hold all the candy we were going to trick-or-treat. And I took a can, you know that stuff that sprays string? It's like silly string, you know that stuff? I took a can, I tucked it under my costume, just in case we had to string somebody. And Bill and I went out. It was a cold October night. The ground was all crunchy hard from the frost, a tiny sliver of a moon up in the sky. It was a kind of cold that like clings to your skin. And we were so excited. We always started out trick-or-treating at Mrs. Dawson's house across the street. But on this night, I looked across the street and her house was completely dark. And Bill said, "I guess she isn't home, Bob. We'll have to start somewhere else." So we started down the street. And as I said, my family was very poor. And we lived in a neighborhood of tiny little houses, which was great for Halloween, because you didn't have to go up any long driveways, you could just go from house to house. And Bill and I walked out 3 or 4 blocks in one direction, and then we walked back 3 or 4 blocks, and by the time we got back, our bags were like bulging with candy. We were very happy. And I looked across the street and I saw a light on in Mrs. Dawson's house, in her front window. I said, "Bill, I guess she's there. Let's go over there." So we crossed the street and went over to her house and went up. And as we walked up the driveway, I could see it wasn't a light in the window. It was a big yellow jack-o'-lantern. It's a huge, bright yellow jack-o'-lantern with a big grin on its face. And Bill and I stepped on to her front stoop, and I knocked on the door, and she didn't come. And I knocked again, and I rang the bell, and she didn't come to the door. And Bill said, "She's in there, Bob. Go ahead, string her." So I took out the can of silly string, and I raised it to her door. And I was about to push it when I stopped. And I just stopped with the can in the air because I saw the front window, and it had changed. The jack-o'-lantern had changed. It wasn't yellow anymore. The jack-o'-lantern was bright red, and it wasn't smiling. It had this horrible scowl on its face. And I dropped the can of silly string, and Bill and I jumped off the front stoop, and we went running down the driveway. We were halfway down the driveway when the front door swung open, and Mrs. Dawson came out. And I remember she was wearing this long gray nightgown. I remember it was fluttering in the wind, this long nightgown, fluttering in the wind. And she said, "Why did you wake me? Why did you wake me?" I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Dawson. We didn't know you were asleep. I'm really sorry. But could you answer one question? How did you do that with the jack-o'-lantern?" And she said, "Jack-o'-lantern? I don't have a jack-o'-lantern." And Bill and I looked in the front window. It was completely black. Well, we ran across the street and we went into our house. We went up to our room. We dumped out all the candy. We started dividing it up. And we didn't say another word about it. We didn't talk about it. But the next morning I woke up and I thought, you know, I really should apologize to Mrs. Dawson for waking her up last night. So I had breakfast. I got dressed for school. And I walked across the street, and there was a big truck in her driveway, and these workers moving in and out of her house. And I went up to one of the workers, and I said, "What's going on?" And he said, "I guess you're getting new neighbors, kid." I said, "Why? What do you mean?" He said, "Oh, I'm sorry. Didn't you know? Mrs. Dawson died 2 weeks ago." That's my true ghost story. Thank you.